Amen, amen. When I was a kid, my dad went to a garage sale and he picked up these Peanuts comic books. You guys know what I mean by the peanut, like Charlie Brown and like all the parents are like womp 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 like that. So he picked up. I at that age, like I didn't know that the Peanuts was like a Sunday comic strip or whatever. And so I thought it was just like a mini little like comic book. Like this is what old people read as comic books. Like I read Superman, and this is what old people read. And I was like, oh, this is Charlie Brown is their Superman. Like no wonder they're so sad. And so I love Peanuts comics like because they're really funny, like they're kind of sarcastic. Charles Schultz is like a really sarcastic dude, but they also like actually talk about like very real things. Like there's all these like little storylines within it. Like Charlie Brown has a dog named Snoopy, and Snoopy sometimes imagines he's a World War II fighter pilot. Uh, yeah, the Red Baron, baby, and then there's Lucy. She runs like a therapy station, like a lemonade stand, and so these kids come with like their existential problems and like talk to Lucy, and she's just like most of her advice is like get over it. Uh, which probably most of us, that'd be probably good. Our therapist friend in the room is probably like, Eric, stop that. Like, work through it. Don't get over it. Anyways, that was not meant to be sarcastic. But anyways, the other one that I always thought that was really funny was Charlie Brown. Even though he was kind of the most disliked kid, he was the captain of the baseball team, and the baseball team wasn't a very good baseball team. Like they won a few times, but most of the time they lost. And because he's Charlie Brown, they all blamed him. And so they would be like, they would lose and be like, "Thanks a lot, Charlie Brown," and he'd just be like, I'm sorry, guys. And like he would really take it on. And one of the things he would always try to like rally the team at like, like in like the second inning or something like that. He'd be in the dugout and he'd be like, "Come on, guys, we can do this." And then at the end of the game, he'd go, "Maybe we didn't win that one, but it was a moral victory." Like anybody have a coach that always talked about the moral victory? That's how you know you were bad at the sport. If your parents were like, "You tried really hard," like, "Oh, thanks, we still lost," and so they would but it was a moral victory. You did good. Like a lot of the stories about battles and wars in the Old Testament are kind of about this. Like win or lose, the whole purpose of them being in the Bible is what was trying to be learned in this. What was the moral victory in this? Even if they lost, what was trying to be taught in this? Everything has a purpose in this. This isn't simply a history book. There's 100 battles that they didn't write about. So why did they write about this one? Why did they say this time that about this battle, about this king, about this area? Everything has some context in it. As we start next week and we look at the book of Deuteronomy, we'll kind of hit a little bit more on some of the details of why each of these stories are put into place. But for the section, for what we're going to talk about today, that in the book of Numbers, it goes battle, 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 4 chapters just on this one guy. So it's worth talking about. It's worth going. Why did the Bible put so? It has almost nothing to do with the Israelite people. For the last like 4 months, we've been exclusively talking about this group of people, and out of nowhere, the Bible's like, "Hey, pause. Let's talk about this dude." And it's not even like a good dude. Like it's not like David. It's not Jesus. It's about a wicked prophet, a guy who can hear the voice of God and uses it for his own benefit. If you look around the world today, we all can have some outside judgments, and we don't need to say names or anything like that. But a lot of times, people don't go to church because of the hypocrisy that they see of people who speak for God but don't actually follow God's word. And so we're really broken up, I think rightfully so, when someone claims the name of God, claims that you should do something, puts a judgment or shame on you and your family and your lifestyle and all this stuff. And then you find out they're doing the very thing that they told you not to do. This is a wicked prophet. It's not a false prophet. He is saying the right things, but doing the opposite. This is wicked. One of the fascinating things about the story of Balaam is that God does speak to him. He does give him certain authority, that God still works through a wicked person. This could be really terrifying for us, right? Because we all kind of know this, but there's a part within us that has to realize that these people that are representing God, I will raise my hand, the first one, have the potential to do all the right things on the surface, but deep down are not living the life that you would follow. I want you guys to choose the people you follow carefully, not just in your faith, but just in life in general. You should choose your bosses carefully. You should choose your friends carefully, okay? And some of us, like, you ever heard of missionary dating? This was really big when I was I've been a Christian my entire life. So when I was in high school, what missionary dating was for you good people was whenever you found, like, you were like, girl, you're hot, but you're not a Christian. So I'm going to, like, get you to go to church. And then when you raise your hand and say yes to Jesus, like, the next thing I need you to say yes to is, will you date me? Like that's missionary dating. Like, I don't want to be guilty of dating someone who's not a Christian, so I'm going to get you to be a Christian first. And so, like, you like tell your youth pastor, like, hey, can you, like, I don't know, like, do like a contest or something like that so I can invite my friend? And he's like, yeah, what's your friend's name? And you're like, Sarah. And he's like, that's not a friend, buddy. You're not trying to invite anyone to church. Like, I know what you're doing, bud. And so it's the same thing. Some of us, we choose our friends, we choose the stuff, like, with the intention of, oh, I'm going to help them. I'm going to bring them. It's like, how are you helping yourself? Like, listen, I'm all about having a large group of friends from multiple cultures, ethnicities, styles, lifestyles, all this type of stuff. But if your whole friend group is just people who don't believe the way that you believe, well, guess what you're going to start believing? You are the uncommon denominator in this. You are going to become like the people that you're around. I want to encourage you, do that and find this community too. Learn to mesh these two together. That's what war is at this time. Is groups, like, there's the whole type of, there's like this whole, like, physical war that's happening, but then there's also a spiritual war that's happening. So in the Bible, when they talk about war, there's the battle, but then there's this whole other side that just happens behind the scenes. For the way the Bible talks about it is there's a war in the physical and the war in the spirit. And sometimes that means, like, this, like, heavenly, there's angels and all this stuff. And all, when you read the book of Revelation and how confusing that is, like, the Revelation just means to, like, pull the curtain back, and it means to reveal what is happening behind the scenes. And so when they talk about war in the Old Testament, it's this very, like, ancient view of war where, like, if your God is strong and their God is strong, it's not just you going to war, it's actually your gods are going to war. And so if you lose, it means that your God is not as strong or as powerful as the other person's God. And so then it becomes not just like, oh, we lost this battle. It's the thing we've been worshiping doesn't have power anymore. And so I want to encourage you guys, as you're trying to figure out the overlap in this, you got to have both the readiness of battle, both in the physical and the spiritual. We're going to talk a little bit more about this here. Modern war, what we would know as war today, is completely separate. There is almost nothing spiritual about war that we know today. If you ask people who have gone to war, they would say it's a spiritual experience because of the constant fear of life and death. And so you just become very aware of how, from moment to moment, things could not go very well. But most of our understanding of war is closely related to, like, entertainment. To just kind of prove it, the movie that won the Oscar this year was Oppenheimer, the story about the man who curated the creation of the atom bomb that ended a war. Like that, it's entertainment. One of the, like, the outside of Mario, which is crazy to me. Modern war, Call of Duty, is like the highest grossing video game franchise of all time. Fortnite is really coming up close behind that, which is then just again guns, battle, drop in, like all this. It's a cartoon version of it. For us, war is entertainment. But I want you guys to know, in the way that we need to understand war in the Old Testament, war is not a game. This isn't fun. It's not cool. It's not entertaining. It is necessary. There are times in which you need to fight and you need to go to war against something that is wrong. It shouldn't be our first option, but there are things worth defending in your life. And so we're going to talk a little bit about this today. The Bible doesn't sugarcoat this, and so we're not going to sugarcoat it today. So we're also not going to be passive observers of war. We're not just going to watch on the sidelines and go, oh, what's happening over there? Praying for you. Like, no, this, like, as much as these American people are our people, we are all one people. And so let's try to solve some problems here, okay? We're gonna solve all war problems today. Yay. No, we're not. Here's the question that I want to ask that's related to this is, are you even fighting right now? Because being passive is really, really easy. Like, not engaging with like the war for your soul is really, really, really easy to do. And so as we enter into this time in the book of Numbers where they're walking through wilderness sections and they're doing all this stuff, all these kings that they're interacting with, they're starting to recognize a couple things about the Israelites. One, Israelites' God has a reputation for killing other gods. If you go back to our message on the book of Exodus, what God is doing when he sends each of these 10 plagues is actually dismantling the foundations of a God that they represented in Egypt. Here's the other thing that our God has a reputation for: killing kings. The Bible says he is the king of all kings. He is the Lord of all lords. So imagine you're a king in this nation and you hear that the Israelites, a people 2 million strong, are walking through, and the God that goes before them in battle kills gods and kings for fun. Not great. Like, this is terrifying. And so, rightly so, this one king named Balak is super concerned. And so in Numbers 22, verse 1 through 6, it opens up like this. It says, "Then the people of Israel traveled to the plains of Moab, camped east of the Jordan River, across from Jericho. Balak, son of Zippor, the Moabite king," these are all little details, don't worry about these, "had seen everything the Israelites did to the Amorites. In a previous battle, he saw how they were defeated. And when the people of Moab saw how many Israelites there were, they were terrified. The king of Moab said to the elders of Midian, the mob will devour everything in sight, like an ox devours grass in the field." So Balak, king of Moab, sent messengers to call on Balaam, son of Beor, who was living in his native land near the Euphrates River. He sent this message. Balaam, again, this is the prophet, this wicked prophet. "Look, a vast horde of people has arrived from Egypt. They cover the face of the earth and are threatening me." By the way, they've just walked through. That's it. He's just heard about them. That's how threatening this is. They haven't even talked to him. And he's like, "They're threatening me. Please come and curse these people for me because they are too powerful for me. Then perhaps I will be able to conquer them and drive them from the land. I know that blessings fall on any people you bless and curses fall on any people you curse." So this king, he seems really competent. He goes, all these other battles, they've just been trying to fight physically, and it hasn't worked out. So I'm going to call on a spiritual war, and then I'm going to defeat them that way. Then I'm going to defeat them physically. This is really, really smart. Let me tell you that there are times in your life that you might be doing super great, like physically healthy. I'm going on walks. I'm doing all this stuff. But internally, there's stuff that just isn't being sorted through. Your marriage might be great, the kids might be healthy, but that trauma, that generational stuff, you're not talking to a counselor, a therapist, a trusted friend about these deep hurts that are going on. So yeah, you look like you're doing all the physical stuff, but there's a spiritual battle that you're losing. And the thing that this king is going, he goes, if I can defeat them spiritually, then I can defeat them physically. If I can't overpower their current habits, I'm going to defeat their spiritual habits. So he calls on somebody that has previous experience of bringing curses and blessings on people. And this is Balaam. So here's kind of the funny thing. Like I said, Balaam actually talks to God. And he goes, so Balak goes, hey, throw these curses. Here's Balaam's response. I won't do it unless God allows me to do it. Not his God. He's talking about Israelites' God. I won't do it unless their God lets me destroy them. So he prays to God. And he goes, hey, I got this opportunity to kill your people. Do you want me to do it? Which your assumption would be like, no. Let's read a little bit. So Numbers 22:12. But God told Balaam, do not go with them. You are to not curse these people, for they have been blessed. Okay, got it. God's good. He's saying exactly what we thought he would say. But again, if we don't read the Bible, we're going to skip over some really important things that just happened in that one phrase right there, just that one little verse. God has killed his people before. In fact, pretty recently, there was a whole rebellion. Like we just skipped over this chapter, Andre Joy, just for the sake of time. But there was a guy named Korah who comes and he says, hey, Moses, not a very good leader because now we're wandering in a desert for 40 years, even though it's Korah's fault. He goes, it's your fault, Moses. So we don't want you to be the leader anymore. The people of Israel, they want me to be the leader. And Moses goes, hey, cool, if you want this job, good luck, man. But you got to ask God if you want this job. It's really funny. Moses is like not super resistant. Like he's just like, all right, hey, I get a break. Like that sounds great. We just got to ask God before we do that. He goes, so hey, come to the tabernacle tomorrow and I'll let you come do this. And so they all go to the tabernacle and it says a fire comes out of the tabernacle, kills Korah, all of his followers, and then kills all of the distant Israelite followers that were in hiding. So God's already in the business of killing his own people. So not super great. So he's not like, it's not that far-fetched to go like, hey, God, do you want me to do it again? Is there anyone else rebelling right now? Like that you want me to just kind of like take them out real quick? Like, and I don't know, let's just see what's happening. Sometimes I feel that with my kids when I'm praying for my kids. I'm like, God, do you just want me to like give one of these away? Like, you guys are, no, you would never. Like, listen, come on. 3 a.m. when your kid is thrown up, like on the carpet, when there's clearly like tile right there, you're like, God, can we just get rid of one of these guys? Like, just make my life a little easier. Nobody? Okay, cool. I'm a bad parent. Okay. This looks like an act of mercy that's on God, but really, more importantly, this is actually an act of faithfulness on God's part. If we go all the way back to the book of Genesis, when God calls Abraham, the founder of the Israelite people, and he says, hey, Abraham, I want you to go to this promised land. I'm going to make a nation out of you. And he says a really important phrase. He says, I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse those who curse you. So, although God has an opportunity to kind of thin the herd and only have his righteous people, he says, I'm not going to do it through someone else who could curse you. So he goes, Balaam, don't curse my people. And so Balaam goes to him. He says, hey, God doesn't want me to do it, so I don't know what to say. And they're like, really? Really? And Balaam, this is really interesting thing about Balaam is he understands certain characteristics of God. Here's what he understands is if God said it, he meant it. Don't mess with God. Don't mess with a God who kills gods. Don't mess with a God who kills kings. Don't mess with a God who frees 2 million people from Egypt. Don't do that. It's not going to end super well. And so Balaam goes, not going to do it. It's not a good idea. God's on their side. This is not going to be good. King, just let them pass through. So they send that message to the king. The king goes, don't take no for an answer. Go back to him and say, I will give you all the silver you could ever want. I'll fill a castle full of it if you will send a curse upon the Israelites. So they go back, they present this new offer to Balaam. And at first, Balaam does kind of like the righteous thing. He's like, no, I would never. But let me ask God just in case. Anybody like negotiate a little bit? Like, well, I mean, if it is it really that bad? Like, okay, I mean, let me just think about it for a second. Like, we negotiate with these things. We negotiate with our spirit. We negotiate with this stuff. I got a question. What is the cost for your spirit? How much is your spirit worth? How much would you sell it for? How much would you sell your soul for? It's kind of that classic devil went down to Georgia, right? And that guy just wants to be able to play the fiddle pretty well. Like, it's a really low cost. Like, it's not. And maybe at that time when the song was written, I don't know. Maybe Balaam, it was he was willing to sell his soul for all the silver that could fill a castle. For Samson, we've talked about Samson before. It was wine and notoriety and his ego. For Solomon, later on, it's just some sort of sense of rest. For his great grandfather Saul, it was to have plunder from a nation that he defeated and didn't give God credit for. For David, it was a one night stand. For Judas, it was 13 pieces of silver. Not even enough to cover any part of his life. Basically, the cost of a meal. What's your soul worth? What are you willing to sell it for? In these stories that we read about, it really looks like it costs a lot and there's like all this stuff. But the reality in our world today is it is extremely easy to sell your soul. It is really, really easy. It's as simple as picking up your phone a lot of the time. It's as easy as just kind of clicking on the wrong website. It's as easy as going through a drive-through just one too many times. It's as easy as just checking your bank statements. What have you sold your soul to? Have you guys heard that phrase? Show me your bank statement. I'll show you what you value. Show me where you put your money. Show me where you do this type of stuff. I'll show you what you value in your life. And sometimes that's good. Hey, I buy groceries so I can feed my family. Good. That's good. But some of us, so I'll leave it there. Here's the real thing that we need to wrestle with is a lot of the times in the negotiation of your soul, it's not about what you can gain. It's actually about what you put down. A lot of us, we need to put down the phone. We need to put down the fork. We need to put down the hustle. We need to put down the things that are hurting us, that are just taking these little pieces of our soul away from us. Like I said, you might be winning the physical, but there's a whole war for your spiritual that you need to put down. And Jesus says this in Matthew 16. I love this. I love quoting Jesus. He's so wise. He says, "What do you benefit if you gain the whole world but lose your own soul? Is anything worth more than your soul?" Is anything? Is anything worth more? And if we were to be honest, there's a lot of times in our lives that we go, that football game is worth more than my soul. That little extra hour of sleep is worth more than my soul. Am I getting into your guys' world? I want you to know these are always messages for me as much as it is for any of us. We're all dwell together. I want us to do some self-evaluation. I want us to recognize in this story that we are often more like Balaam than we would like to admit. We have the opportunity because of the work of Jesus in our lives to be able to speak and be able to know God's will, yet we often choose our will above his. His will is sometimes a little harder in the beginning, but ends up being so much more restful, so much good for your spirit and your soul. And what is worth more than that? What we read in this story, what God shows us is that he has grace in bright colors for us. I love that phraseology. I stole that from a pastor friend of mine. Grace in bright colors. It's not hard to see, just like a rainbow. You just have to be looking at the right time and you can find it. So Balaam, even though God has told him no twice, he goes anyways. goes to curse the people of Israel. God's not happy about this. He's often not happy about you doing things that he doesn't like you to do, especially Old Testament God. And so God sends an angel, and as Balaam is riding a donkey into the camp of the Israelites, this donkey 3 different times sees this angel. Because Balaam has negotiated his spirit away, he can't see the angel that's in front of him. It says the angel is on fire and carrying a sword, which again, terrifying. And this donkey sees it and goes, oh no, like, and tries to save his master by going off. And 3 different times, Balaam beats the donkey back onto the path. And so, out of this is wild. I don't know if you guys have read this story before. God allows the donkey to speak English. This is it's strange. Read this. And the donkey goes, "Why are you beating me? I'm trying to save your life." And it says that God lets Balaam see the angel, and Balaam immediately has this, "Oh no, what am I doing? This is." Sometimes you need a donkey in your life to tell you, like, we'll let you interpret however you want with that. It always feels bad when somebody that feels like they're not doing as well in life as you can speak some better truth to you, right? It humbles you, right? That you need a donkey to tell you what God is trying to say. Here, let me wrap up some of this story right here. I love this. It's Numbers 22. It talks about, this is what the donkey says to Balaam. This is crazy. I don't know if you guys are more Winnie the Pooh or Shrek people, but those are the only 2 talking donkeys that I know. So you decide what voice this donkey has. I don't know. Depends if you're an optimist or a pessimist. It's either like, oh no, or we're making waffles. Numbers 22:28. This is so wild. Then the Lord gave the donkey the ability to speak. What have I done to you that deserves your beating me 3 times? It asked Balaam. You have made me look like a fool, Balaam shouted. If I had a sword with me, I would kill you. But I am the same donkey you have ridden all your life, the donkey answered. Have I ever done anything like this before? Well, no, Balaam admitted. Then the Lord opened Balaam's eyes. He saw the angel of the Lord standing in the roadway with a drawn sword in his hand. Balaam bowed his head and fell face down on the ground before him. Okay, here's what we're going to learn from this. 3 times God tries to get Balaam's attention because he's given up the fight in the spiritual. He's not even in tune to the physical anymore. God has to make a new physical thing to point out how ridiculous this is. Balaam, I have audibly told you not to do this. I'm going to make your donkey speak to make you realize how bad of an idea this is. Here is the real unfortunate truth. Balaam still goes to curse the Israelites. God has told him no. God has told him to stop, and Balaam still goes. And so we reach these points in the story in which Balaam goes out to curse the Israelites. And he's like, God, I'm going to do this. This is going to happen. And every time that when Balaam tries to blurt out a cursing on the people, he actually ends up saying a blessing over the people. He literally can't even force a negative word out of his mouth. He can't say anything that would put God's people down. He fails at it, and he goes, well, let me just try a different location. So they move to another side of the mountain, and he tries to curse them again, and a blessing comes out again. He can't even say it again. A 3rd time, he goes, let's go to another location. This time, let's sacrifice more animals. Let's bring more people. Let's shed more blood across this, and then maybe I'll have enough power to overcome what God's will actually is. And this time, when Balaam goes to curse the Israelites, the blessing that comes out of his mouth is not only will the Israelites defeat these people, but they're actually going to defeat the next people and the people after that. And they're going to build up an army so large that they're going to take over the promised land. And what's even greater is there's going to be a king that comes from them that frees all people. This is the work of God, and he's trying to do it through Balaam's wicked mouth. This is a crazy story. I love this story. It reminds me of a story of Joseph in Genesis 50. And he says this to his brothers who have harmed him, that tried to curse him. And he says this: "You intended to harm me, but God intended it all for good. He brought me to this position so I could save the lives of many people." Here's what I want. We're going to wrap up with this today. Here's what I would love to be a sign to you that God is with you. That the people who have been in your life that are negative, or maybe they have negative experiences with you, they see something new in you because you are fighting for the life that you've always wanted. You're fighting for peace in your life. You're fighting for love in your life. You're fighting for joy in your life. You're fighting for this thing you're fighting for your family. You're fighting for your future. You're fighting for a purpose. And people see that. They see the old you versus the new you. And where they previously might have cursed you, they can't help but say nice things about you. What a work of God in your life. That would be the craziest thing, that the people you used to harm, the people that are so offended by your lifestyle, they may not like you, but they can't say anything bad about you. Wouldn't this be a cool thing if Christians were more known about this? Right now, to be Christian is almost a slur. Right now, if you were to say you're a Christian in a workplace, at a school, at a family gathering even, it's almost offensive. It casts some sort of judgment on other people of they're not living a good lifestyle like you are. And it doesn't actually mean what it's supposed to mean, which is a group of people just trying to follow Jesus and his example of life that was filled with love and forgiveness. He was surrounded by the poorest of poor. He was surrounded by sex workers. He was surrounded by thieves. He was surrounded, even at his own death, he was surrounded by criminals. And we go, oh, that's what being a Christian's supposed to be. It's supposed to be, I actually can be around the worst of the worst, and I still bless people around me. See, I wish Balaam could have known the story of the Israelites to this point. He wouldn't have just been afraid of their God. He would have been afraid of their potential. Those are all the blessings that God puts out of Balaam's mouth. Look at these people and what they're going to do. I want us to be those people. And all of this happening, from the fear of the king to the hiring of Balaam to the donkey speaking to the curses turning into blessings. Do you know what the Israelites were doing? Simply walking through enemy territory and winning battle after battle. I think there's an interesting contrast between Balaam and the nation of Israel. Both are fighting a battle and waging war in both the physical and the spiritual. The one who is winning is the one that is following God's word. The one who suffers is the one who negotiates his spirit away from them. Dwell Church, there's a battle for your soul in the spiritual realm. But let me ask this question one more time. Are you even fighting? Have you let someone else do it? Have you given up that fight? And today, could you start this fight again? Would you guys stand?